Hey, welcome to the 24/7 Marriage Podcast. I am Javier,
I'm Shannon.
and we are your hosts. We are your marriage flippers, and we love doing what we get to do.
We get to, we don't
We
have
get
to.
to. We don't have to. We don't have to do this,
We could
but
pick
we get
another
to do
job.
this for each and every one of you. And it honestly, at the end of the day, it's not even what we do. It's what it is God is doing, and so we're super stoked about that. And yeah, but I enjoy doing it with my Pookie right here.
I enjoy doing it with you too.
Oh, that sounds so good. Wow, not rehearsed at all. She's tired because we're going on our third recording of the day, and so she's probably tired and,
Yeah.
and done talking.
Yeah.
Even though she's just talking to me all the time, she is done talking.
Well, I
to
don't
me.
talk to you that much.
You
No,
don't. You're always.
I'm
You're no.
I'm
You're
a
very.
woman of few words. I like quiet, and Javi talks all day
It
long.
feels like you're angry sometimes when you're that quiet in the house all the time.
I'm a processor, Javier.
Maybe I kind of just feel that you're frustrated with me. Maybe that's what it is.
Oh my gosh, we're still on this.
Because when you get frustrated, you get kind of quiet with me.
Yeah.
So when you're quiet, I feel like, oh, what? Well, is she frustrated
Well,
with me?
old
What
Shannon
happened?
would yell at you, so I'm choosing to
Oh, this is so much better.
just
Like
refrain.
not don't talk about it. Just shove it down. Just stuff it down.
I don't know that that's always true. That I'm always
not.
irritated with you. There's some times where
Not
I'm just
always.
quiet.
Just sometimes.
Yeah, there's sometimes I'm frustrated with you. Are you frustrated with me sometimes?
Oh, dear Lord. Yes, Shannon.
Okay, then
Yeah, you are a gift.
we're both. I know I'm a gift. I'm your greatest gift.
You are my greatest gift. Yeah. Guess what? I don't know, but when this comes out, but I think it comes out in March, and so we're gonna be really close to April celebrating our 32nd anniversary, and I think we're gonna be doing a podcast about 32
Ooh.
years and what have we learned in 32 years.
Okay, I want you to come up with 32 things
No,
that you learned.
that could be 32 things that I learned. That would be no,
You
because
have.
there's so many more that I've learned, but
Oh, good answer.
it would be a long podcast.
No,
Yeah.
you don't like elaborate. You just read the list. I learned patience.
How about what I've learned in 32 years in 32 words?
Okay.
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 Well, I'll take that. Sure. You're funny.
I
funny.
usually don't ask for a gift, but this year I think I'm going to ask for a gift.
Okay.
I might want a new tattoo.
I'll get one too.
Okay.
You often ask for a gift. You give no, not for anniversary, like maybe for birthdays and stuff like that. You'll give like a list.
Never
She gives a list, and then she goes and starts to buy the stuff that's on the list.
No, that's not true.
Shannon,
that happened like 20 years ago.
No, it's happened before.
No, it has not.
You'll write a list, and then you'll say, oh, "I'm going to go shy. Where are you going?" Well, I'm looking for this. That's on your list that you just gave me,
that happened
and I
20
already
years ago.
bought it.
No.
You've not, Shannon.
You're really
It's
bringing up
okay.
the past.
It's okay,
Shannon. You are literally bringing up the past.
I have
right now.
kept that scorecard in my back pocket.
I would not.
waiting to pull it out.
Yeah, apparently.
No, Shannon. I have.
It's
Okay.
not true.
Oh, yeah, right. Are you okay? You haven't done that.
So,
You're right.
but this year I feel like I want an anniversary present, and I want an anniversary card that
Just
you
so you know,
write
we
in.
typically don't do that. We get cards from one another, but we typically don't get gifts. Even at Christmas, we didn't get a single thing for one another.
No.
Because we're I don't know, we live pretty minimally, and like we have what we need.
We used to do stocking stuffers. We do
Yeah.
that occasionally.
I don't know, but our focus is really just on like being present, being there, like really on the true meaning. But we also like we're just not like there's things we might want, but we don't need them, and so we
no,
just
but
typically
this
don't.
anniversary, I want to be wowed.
Okay, Shannon, we have had an anniversary where I wowed you, where we've taken you to Hawaii by surprise. Like we renewed our vows.
Oh,
on
I don't
one.
need to.
Like,
I don't need to go
like
to Hawaii.
There's things that we've done,
but I just want you to know I'm looking for a surprise.
Yeah, because I don't know what happened on our 30th anniversary. There was way too much going on.
What just words came out of your mouth?
30th anniversary. Our 30-year anniversary, like we didn't really get to celebrate like we wanted to in Tennessee. I think there's a lot going on. We had boot camps, like
it was a good anniversary.
It was, but like we had planned on going away.
Nashville.
We had planned on going away somewhere.
We did.
Like
and
we were
that didn't
there
happen.
to work.
Yeah.
And we were
got to stay in Nashville overnight. We went to Broadway. We had a great dinner. We went to that winery.
Didn't we at some point go to the Grand Ole Opry?
Not on our anniversary.
Oh, okay.
That was birthdays. But, but we went to Parlor Donuts. That's where we discovered Parlor
Yeah,
Donuts.
we love Parlor
So,
Donuts.
I mean, yeah, we do wanna go
Parlor,
somewhere.
do you wanna be a sponsor? Because I
Oh
could
my
use a free donut.
gosh. What kind of podcast are we if we have
Anyways,
donuts that sponsors us?
the podcast that loves Parlor Donuts. So Parlor,
Oh
Parlor,
my
Parlor. Hope you're in
gosh.
it. Um, this episode's gonna be, I'm gonna talk we're gonna be talking to the men. Women
Good.
want you to
Talk
lean
away.
in and listen.
Talk away.
Um, this, I always say this, that it's something that
Always,
because I
always.
think on podcast we're just skimming, if you will, the topics. There's so much that could be said. Like you can do episode upon episode about one subject, the different facets of the subject, and so this where I wanted to go. And so for you men that are listening, which is like three of you, no, I know there's more men that listen, but I want to encourage you, you women, yeah, give it to your guy. I don't care if it's one of those things where like, we always tell couples like, don't always be sending the reels and the
Oh,
messages
geez,
like,
yes.
oh, you need to hear this. Like, as
Oh,
men,
but they do it in the
they do it.
comments.
As
They
men, we
tag
don't.
their spouse.
Yeah, and sometimes it's fun because they're like, oh, this was funny, or
No,
and they
there's some
laugh
of them,
about
the
it.
more serious ones, it's like, you just tagged your spouse because you want them to do this or they're not doing this thing.
Yeah,
And I'm
exactly.
like, "Ooh, I don't know
Yeah,
if that's gonna go well."
yeah, and so
I actually have a reel that
Dewey
I
does it.
have saved that I wanna show you
Yeah,
because 'cause I'm like, "Sometimes you do
yeah.
this." And I haven't showed it to you yet
But
because
share
it
the
feels.
podcast with it because it's more of a general thing. But what I want to talk about is telling you men just straight up, you need to fix the mirror and not the window. Fix the mirror and not the window in your life. What that means is, what is your marriage actually revealing about you? Our friend Jeff always says that whatever's going on in your marriage, you brought it here. You brought it to this moment. You brought it to this place right now. Full ownership is the only way you're going to move forward. And yes, a lot of work. But here's the thing, you got to fix the mirror and not the window. And I'm going to explain to you what I mean by that. But I'm going to give you a scripture. In Matthew 7:3, it says, why do you look at the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye and pay no attention to the plank in your own eye? Fix the mirror and not the window. What do I mean by that? Some of you look straight through the window, look at your spouse, and just blame them. You look through the window and you see your spouse and you just blame them. Why are they doing this? Why is she treating me that way? Why is she responding this way? Why is she acting that way? Why is she frustrated? Why is she so emotional? Why is she feeling this way? Like, blame, 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 blame. You're quick to look out the window and blame your spouse and blame others and blame culture and blame society, blame everything and not take ownership rather than look in the mirror and seeing the responsibility that you have. A strong marriage, men, starts with personal accountability. Starts with you stepping up, with you owning, you being you being mature and growing spiritually. That's how you're going to get there. Being the man of God that God calls you out to be, stepping up, being the dangerous man that you know you are. Shannon looks like she's just bored. She's just sitting there.
No, I'm
She's just bringing
thinking.
it in.
Oh, so
So the blame game, like, why men continue to blame their spouse. And I want to ask you, like, why do you think men do that? That they are blaming and looking through the window at their spouse instead of taking ownership and responsibility. And here's the thing, before you answer, as you're thinking, it doesn't matter, even if it's something that she's done. It may not be your fault, but it's your responsibility. It is
ooh,
your
whoa,
responsibility, and that's what you need to understand. It may not be
yikes.
your fault, but it is your responsibility because it wasn't Jesus' fault.
People are not gonna
Like
like
the
that answer.
sin that he took on the cross for you, he didn't have to. It wasn't his. It was yours. But yet he took it and he died And even though it wasn't his fault, it was his responsibility, giving himself on behalf of you, the bride. You as men are called to give your life on behalf of your bride. And even if it's not your fault, it becomes your responsibility to move, to engage, to cover them, to walk alongside them, to forgive, to give grace, to give mercy, to image Christ. Like we said in our last podcast, to minister to them. Like that becomes your responsibility. So I have some thoughts, but why do you think men do that? That they look out the window instead of in the mirror.
because men, we're seeing a cultural shift, and they are abdicating their role and responsibility at home to other things. They are being complacent. They have become apathetic and weak. Um, this is why we're seeing a shift within some churches where they have a very strong focus on men and ministry because they see that the decline of our society is because of weak men
Yeah.
that have not stepped up into their God given role as a husband and as a father and as a leader. I just listened to this reel of this doctor that interviewed a pedophile, and he asked him, he's recovered and all that, but he asked him, how did you pick the children that you would target? And he said that he would look for weak husbands that were not paying attention, they were not participating in their child, they seemed a little feeble and not strong and not forthright, not somebody who would stand up and defend their family because that child would be easily could be easily swayed or pursued or taken. And that hit me so hard because um, y you do not have to be physically strong. You do not have to be this bodybuilder, weightlifter. This is not the image that we are actually talking about right now. But we're talking about this strong man of character, of valor, of fervor, this man who has merit, who stands up for what's right. Because listen, your character is defined by what you do when absolutely nobody is paying attention.
Yeah.
Do you do the right thing? Will you
Yeah.
stand up for the weak and those that cannot defend themselves?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's good. And I really good. And I think the other, as men look through the window instead of in the mirror, it's easier to point the finger than to acknowledge your own
But
shortcomings, your own
it
struggles.
happened in the garden.
Oh, absolutely.
The first thing out of Adam's mouth was, "She made me do
No, this
this."
woman that you gave me.
Yes, exactly.
We blamed from the very beginning, and yet here we stand still doing the same thing, not taking ownership and responsibility for our shortcomings. So pride and ego get in the way for sure. Men, we can be prideful and we can have an ego, so we're not going to own those things. But then culture. I mean, culture is another reason why men look and just blame instead of taking ownership and look in the mirror, because it teaches men that we just fix problems. We just fix problems, instead of actually reflecting on ourselves. Like maybe I caused that problem, or maybe I can be the one who helps with that. But I'm not gonna. I'm not the fixer, right? Like so often, your wife doesn't need you to fix it; she needs you to listen, but not fix it. And I think also from a spiritual standpoint, spiritual immaturity
Oh,
is why men
100%.
point the finger, because they basically, if you do that, blind you from seeing that God is using marriage to refine you. And that's a difficult thing
The
because
American church has destroyed masculine Christianity. They 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 have done no favors in the last 30 or 40 years for
yeah,
the men that are sitting
yeah, yeah,
in the pews
yeah.
every Sunday.
And that's the thing. Marriage is meant to refine you. Like it is meant to refine you. And so if you point the finger, you will never do the work to sharpen, to become a better man.
And that makes you a weak man.
No, it makes you a weak man. Your marriage will reveal so much about who you are.
Yes.
Like not just your wife. Like your marriage will reveal who you are. the kind of man that you are, and how will you step into the front line? How will you step into the fire? How will you pursue, engage your wife? How will you move after them, even when she's acting that way? Even when you're like, I am not going into the dragon's lair again because she's going to yell, she's going to scream, she doesn't listen. I try doing this, I try doing that. Well, there could be a reason why. But your responsibility is still to move towards her, to break those walls down. Or, well, actually, it's her job to break the walls down, but to stand at that wall and not just circle around the outside of it, but to begin to love and to engage, to listen, to hear. You know, it's crazy. Even with the wall there, you can put your ear up against it and you can talk and you can listen and you can hear. And then that wall begins to come down because you're taking ownership. And also at the same time, we tell this to couples in boot camps, if there's a wall been built, then hang a stinking mirror on that wall and look at yourself and ask why. Was it because emotionally you've been vacant for so long? Because you've had a love affair with your golf game, with your phone, or with somebody else at work? Is that why? Is it because you have just been busy doing life and doing work and you just have lost connection, emotional connection? Maybe you didn't intend for that to happen. Like you get along, but there's just no connection and she's growing kind of dismissive and tired and withdrawn because she misses you. And maybe she needs to talk about it, but she hasn't. And so you start blaming her, and now she's blaming you, and the cycle just continues. And so it's marriage is meant to refine you. It is meant to shape you. And so it is about taking ownership in your marriage, about taking responsibility. You know, right? Instead of saying stuff like she'll never listen, it's saying, hey, am I listening to her? Am I actually listening to her?
Mm.
Hey, she'll never change. Well, am I changing?
Mm.
Am I making those changes?
So good.
We keep saying these things like she doesn't respect me. Okay, maybe that's true. Maybe there's been a lack of respect. But how about asking yourself, am I loving her as Christ loves the church? Am I loving her as a daughter of the Most High King? Like, that's a good question to ask, as opposed to why is she not doing this? And I would say also lead yourself before you try to lead your home, because most men aren't doing that either. Like, when I say lead yourself is like, okay, what's your spiritual growth, your walk with God, the men in your life that are speaking into your life? What are you doing to emotionally grow, right? Learning how to manage anger, communicate, connect. Like, what are you doing for personal growth? What are you doing to lose, right, the 300 pounds that you gained because you have been upset about yourself or the way the job is going or frustrated how things are going at home, and so you've turned to food or you turn to alcohol or you turn to pornography? What are you doing to build habits and disciplines consistently to lead yourself spiritually, especially, so you can lead your home well? I mean, don't expect to lead your home well when you're not feeding yourself spiritually. Like, how is that going to happen? Simply just praying and reading the Bible, like getting in a group of men where you can talk about what's going on and be held accountable and just have conversations. I mean, all right, I'm talking a lot. Do you
Oh,
want anything?
no. No, keep going. Um, One thing that I would, um, say to men as a wife, you best be leading your family to church every single day, and I'm gonna give you a statistic. Men who lead their families to church, when those children graduate out of, like, high school, there's a 73% chance rate that they stay in church. When husbands don't go to church and wives and moms are leading their family to church, it goes to, like, 23,
Yeah,
25% of those kids
yeah,
will stay in church. So it's statistically telling you something. The way that God designed marriage and family and the way he set up everything is that men, you lead, you go first. I remember, a couple from Tennessee in their testimony at the end, he said that my takeaway this week is that Javier said, "Men, you go first." I don't care if you don't wanna go first. You go first.
yeah,
You lead. If you're in a church that doesn't have good Bible teaching and they're teaching men their rightful place and true what true masculinity looks like, find another church. but be leading your family to church every day. Be that example. Be the one who's out in the car first, because you are setting up a generational impact of children and your children's children who will either know Jesus and keep pursuing and loving and serving God, or it will it will die. It will end with you if you become just this apathetic person whose woe is me, the world is against me, and you just put God on a back burner and just ignore it.
Yeah.
You are killing a
Yeah.
generational line of children who will either know God or not know God.
Yeah. Sorry, we had to pause. Our recording was doing something funny. So, um, another part of that is of the taking ownership and looking at the mirror instead of through the window, is serving, right? Serving instead of expecting to be served. Like throughout Scripture, Christ was a servant of all. He came to serve and not be served. He came to serve and not be served. He came to serve and not be served.
Yeah.
Period. Like, I don't know how much more clear that can be. That when you do that, it strengthens your marriage, and even if it's not reciprocated, you still are called to serve, to lay yourself down, to love, and to pursue. You're still called to do that regardless. So serve. Like, the choices you're making today will reveal what your marriage is gonna look like tomorrow, and so you have to start with growth. You have to start with leading yourself well. Commit to improving yourself, to your self-growth, to your spiritual growth, to all these areas, to leading yourself before you're leading your home, like we said, to love first, to lay your life down on behalf of another, right? And stop focusing on what she's not doing. Stop focusing on what she didn't say or what she didn't do, and start looking at you,
Yeah.
focusing on how you can improve. And that's where men get stuck consistently every single time, that they cannot look at themselves because they're so intent on looking at their spouse or the situation and blaming somebody instead of saying, "No, I own this. I brought our marriage here. Yes, yes, I'm sure she's contributed. She's done certain things, but I and people don't like this, but like, man, we see marriages heal when the man steps up and begins to do the work."
Yep. Consistently.
And there are women who have hardened their hearts 100%. And when they've hardened their hearts, it's like it's not that God can't do it and that He wouldn't do it, is that they've hardened their hearts to what God is inviting them into, because it would be hard. Because they'd have to lay some things down and potentially take a risk saying, but what if he didn't change? Or what if, like, he has another affair? Or what if they'd have to lay all that down and trust God more than they trust their spouse? But if they're not willing to do that, they won't experience the fullness of what God has invited them into and the change that maybe their husband has experienced and gone through and the man that he has become. And so what tends to happen is, like, that's when we see that not work, and is when someone is hardened in their heart or not willing to forgive or to forget. But when we have seen husbands lead in a powerful way, step up and take ownership and love their spouses selflessly and sacrificially, take ownership and wake up out of their apathy, we start to see women's hearts soften. We start to see them shift and change over time. They start to see, man, this is like what I want, what I prayed for. Their heart softens because they're allowing God to work in their life, which is that what they need to do, because they also need to look in the mirror.
Yeah.
So you need a two-sided mirror so you can
A
both look at it
two-sided mirror.
instead of just having a window where you're standing there and just looking at one another.
Lisa Bevere said that we've become experts of all the deficits of our spouse. Like
Yeah.
we are experts at it. If I was to ask any woman at a boot camp or a conference to stand up and list off 10 things they don't like about their spouse, they would, in under 10 seconds, I'm sure I would have a list. But if I said, stand up and give me a list of 10 qualities, characteristics, and things you love, respect about your spouse, well, they get stuck at 4 or 5, and then they're like, they have to, like, really think, like, we it is so second nature for us to automatically go to the negative and think about everything that our spouse is doing wrong, but how much time and energy do we give to just the place of gratitude, even if it's internal, if it's in a prayer, if it's verbally to your spouse. How many times do we tell people, "Hey, does your wife or your husband make dinner every night?" "Oh, yeah." "How often do you go into the kitchen and say, 'Thank you for making dinner, that was really great'?" "Oh, well, they know it was great." It was like, no, you actually have to practice that act of being
Yeah.
of gratitude, because it's not second nature.
Yeah.
You are a critic before you are a person of grace,
Yeah.
and unfortunately, that's the sinful nature of
Yeah.
people,
Yeah.
that we that I know all of your faults and all of the things that I don't like before I could list out everything I love about you, and that's terrible.
Yeah.
Like, let's flip that and reverse that.
Yeah. Absolutely. So that I'm gonna wrap it up. Um, but this is what I want to be able to tell you is that, and hopefully this podcast is coming out. What I want to be able to tell you is this: like, stop looking through the window and look in the mirror. And if you see your spouse struggling with something as you look through that window, guess what? Walk over there, stand next to her, and look at it together instead of standing there and just seeing the problem and saying they're the problem. Why don't you come next to her and see what you're facing? Walk with her, walk alongside her, do the work as you stand in that mirror also and looking at yourself. And you know what needs to shift and change and be responsible for that. And no more shifting blame and pointing the fingers. Be done with it. Be done with it. Time to grow up, buddy. Hey, we love you. Thanks for being part of this podcast. Always remember, marriage, you don't have to. You get to. Have an incredible week, and we'll talk to you soon. For listening to the 24/7 Marriage Podcast. Help us expand our reach by rating and leaving us a review on iTunes. Make sure to hit subscribe so you don't miss an episode. For more information on the work we do and how to support 24/7 Marriage, head on over to 247marriage.org and click on Partner with Us. Until next week, remember, in marriage you don't have to, you get to.